All right, so now it's time to move on to the build drums. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this build kick. So I'm going to drag in the MIDI from the build kick, which is going to be on this main kick part. So we're going to go to the MIDI and I'll drag in this build kick. So what's cool about this build kick is that the kicks are actually going up in pitch. So we can hear this right here. There's the first kick, and then so it's actually going up in pitch. It's a really cool sound. So let's listen to that. So you can hear that everything starts to cut out really hard because everything is sidechained to the kick still a lot. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to automate the dry wet of the main kick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it all the way wet, and then I'm just going to have it sort of progress down. So I'm just going to have this just like that. So the dry wet just gets lower and lower because I don't want the whole song to pump out that hard. So I'm just going to do it like that. And we're going to kind of fade everything out when we get to the effects and the synths. So for now, I'm just going to turn off this part of the bass because I don't want it to interfere with the rest of the build drums that we're going to do. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put the snare, and this is going to be the drop snare. And this snare is going to happen right when these kicks stop. So let's go ahead and rename this main snare. And I am going to open up a sampler, and let's go to our samples, and I'm going to type in snare. So let's go to our samples, and we're going to go to NK snare 42, and that is going to be our main snare. So let's go ahead and we are going to put a snare hit right there. So we're going to go to C3 because that's the root note. All right, and let's go ahead and let's pump this volume up to 0 so we have full volume. And let's go ahead and shorten this kick so it isn't overlapping into. All right. And we're going to do a little bit of glue compression. Just so we're compressing the peak a little bit, and then makeup gain, and then we will turn the soft clipping on. And it's just compressing the snare a little bit. And let's turn the soft clip back on. So it's sort of bringing out the body of the snare a little bit more. And that is it. We're going to leave that snare there. The next thing we're going to add is the snare roll. So we're going to go ahead and make another MIDI track and open up another sampler. And we're going to go to heavy snare. So let's go to our samples and heavy snare 34. So this is the snare we're going to have, and let's go to our MIDI and get the build. All right, let's drag this all the way back. So this is the snare build we're going to be going after. All right, and before I forget, we're going to be using this same saturator for the heavy snare too. Totally forgot about that. So let's go ahead and add this saturator on. And all we're going to do is bump this up 3 decibels and turn the soft clip on. So just makes the snare a little bit grittier. And basically we are going to put the same glue compressor and saturator. We're going to select those two, copy them, and paste them onto the snare roll. So now let's listen to what we have for this build. All right, sounding good so far. So the next thing we're going to add is let's add this crash. This crash is from the intro 1.3, and we're just going to add that back to the build-up. So, and you can hear that sidechain is definitely still a part of it. And then what we're going to do is, let's make a locator too, just so we know where we're ending. So we'll do drop 1.1. We'll leave that right there. And then we're going to put another reverse crash going into the drop. So all right. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get into our build up drums. So we're going to make build 1, build 2, build 3. And before we even get into laying these drums down, I'm going to make a bus inside of the group. So we're going to call this build drums bus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this slightly a slightly darker shade of orange, just so it stands out. And I'm going to select this in button, just like we did with the sidechain. And I'm going to select all of these audio tracks I just made for the builds. And instead of the group, we're going to set them to the build drums bus. And so now all 3 of these build up drums are going to run through this bus first. So let's go ahead and start arranging our drums. So we have 15, 13, and 32. So let's just start laying these down. And let's listen to this, what we have now. All right, so now let's do a little bit of processing to these build drums, because that's why we bust them all together, is because we could process them all individually, and that's all fine and good. But we're going to add some compression, and the compression is only going to really affect everything a certain way if they're all being compressed together. So it's all these signals on top of each other going into the compressor, and that is what matters. So we're going to go to our plugins and go to OTT again, and we're going to set the depth to 24. So let's listen back to what we have now. Let's listen to just the drums. It's bringing out the highs. It's kind of just making everything a little bit more lively. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an EQ8 and make it more lively, and then take out some of these lows. So we're going to do a sharp low cut and bring it up to 100. And then I'm just going to take this 3 and make a bell boost right around 10K. So you can definitely hear the highs being more prominent. So let's group these together and listen to what it sounds like without. And what I'm going to do is I want everything to end right there, so I'm going to delete this part right here. I'm going to delete this too because I just want the snare to be there. So let's listen to everything, or what we have now. Awesome. All right, and the last thing we're going to add is we're going to add these claps. So let's make a MIDI track, and we're going to go to Instruments and go to Drum Rack, and we're going to add our claps. So let's go to our samples again, and let's type in clap. And we're going to add these 5 claps, select them all, and drag them into our drum rack. And then we're going to make a MIDI clip that's 8 bars long. And we're going to start with quarter note claps. So I'm going to make 1 clap there and hit Command-C, Command-V to copy and paste. And we are just going to line it up like this. Then select them all and duplicate them all the way across until it gets to the 29. So until you've done 4 bars. So let's listen to this. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take clap 4, 5, and 2. So how I did that is I selected these 5 and 4, and then I held Shift and selected 2 as well. And we are going to duplicate them all the way across until 7. Now for 1 and 2, we are going to make 1/8 notes rather than quarter notes. So for clap 3, I'm going to hit Command-D to duplicate, and then Shift left twice to make the note half as long, and then Oops, let's select the note, and I'm going to duplicate it across all the way like that. And then I'm going to take this MIDI right here, and I'm going to copy and paste it for clap 1. So I'll copy, paste, and then drag down to clap 1. So now what we have is this. And then what we're going to do is we are going to select this MIDI right here and hit duplicate over. And then I'm going to copy and paste it onto every clap right there from 7 to 8. So now we have So now let's do a little bit of processing to this. So first thing we're going to add is we're going to add our OTT. So let's go to our plugins, grab OTT, and we are going to leave the depth all the way up. So we want this is just making this clap sound absolutely huge right now. And what's cool about this is it almost sounds like we've added a reverb, but we really haven't. It's just compressing everything so hard that the tails of all the claps are being brought to the front right after the transient. So then after the OTT, we are going to add an EQ8, and we are just going to roll off everything after 30, or everything below 30. And then we are just going to add a saturator. So let's listen to everything together. So we'll start from right around here, just so you can get the full feel. All right, and that is it for the build-up drums. The next thing I'm going to get into is the build-up vocals, synths, and effects. And the reason I wanted to do the drums first is so you could really get a feel of the rhythm, because that is what is driving the energy of the build-up. And then the synths, effects, and vocals are really just there, kind of adding to it and just continuing the theme of the song. So let's get into that.